we're the ones that are expected to make them laugh. I feel, and a lot of areas I'm in where they won't even my dad won't even like say a word to me unless like I'm the one that has to start the conversation. I'm the one that has to make it interesting.
Isn't
Like
that so awkward?
my whole life, I haven't even talked with my dad really.
Yeah.
We haven't even had a conversation.
No. It's sad. It's weird
My
having a Martin dad. It's so
Yeah,
strange.
and my bio dad, because I know my aunt has a penis. Um, she's she doesn't really care about me at all either.
Jeez.
I showed you some pictures in the Discord chat. I found them pretty interesting. It was a sunset, and it's two pictures that are like the most obvious transvestigation thing you could fucking find out there. Like
Oh
John Legend with like the tiniest little feet. Like I don't even know how that's
yeah.
possible. Trump.
Yeah.
The image is a little bit widened because it's a meme, but he does have some fucking crazy hips. That's
Tiny,
definitely a natural woman,
tiny,
it seems.
tiny feet and huge hips. That is a little imp woman. And then Donna Trump with the biggest ass ever.
Yeah. Yeah, Donald Trump, dude. I've showed that picture to probably 300 people.
Yeah.
That's my favorite one to open up about. Or since I found that John Legend one, I've been opening with that as well.
Those are
It's
so
fun.
good. Those are so good. Danny and I were
Yeah.
laughing watching the that Chrissy Teigen John Legend because it's such a good one where he breaks down at the end and calls her out for the crazy sea creature she is because she looks so strange on the beach there. Oh god.
Yeah. Oh my god. And like the face is just so plastic.
It's so fake.
Like
Everything's fake about her.
yeah. Like I don't know how people are attracted to that. Like it's disturbing.
It's so gross. It's like yeah, the most put together fake glistening face. And then she talks all of her like disgusting stuff. I'm fortunate to not have a baby, and I feel like it's a blessing that I'm infertile, and oh, I'm around open-minded sodomites, so it's okay. Just they're so sick. They're so like self-absorbed. It's just you just go like whatever. Like it's like a caricature.
Yeah.
And oh man, she looks so
What are
freaky.
some celebrities that stand out to you, or that just the ugliest of the uglies? I gotta think about this myself too.
Oh, yeah, there are some grotesque ones. I mean, Angelina Jolie. Even when I was little, I was just like, no way. That is not something I'm into. Way too
Oh yeah.
strong. Way looks more manly than anything I've ever seen.
What's that chick from Friends?
Oh, Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, she's got a foot for a face.
Yeah, foot for her face. But I was like, well, I do like the fake tits. Back in the day, I was like, if those are real tits, I like them. But it's just not right.
No.
And it's like in our lives, like I think as a kid I was into milfs. Like I saw the natural woman, and I'm like, wow, that's hot. Like you can't really. The terrors kind of look the same growing up. You can't really tell as much. It's more the shitty behavior is the telltale when you're young.
Yeah, they look basically the same until you get to be like high school age, and then you start to notice a lot of differences.
No, and I knew it at a very young age, like who was who. And I'd confess to my friends that I liked one of the girls, and they're like, "Oh, she's fat. Why are you into her?" Like,
yeah, because she's
wanted
nice.
to mean that, and they ask about it in the first place, and they hate your answer.
Yeah, because she's nice, and they like I don't know. Like you, I had a woman relationship, and it's the only one I think back on the kindergarten, and then went to middle school, and yeah, she was the sweetest one. Like she was friends with them, but like wasn't overt or wasn't like too. She's her own person, a good person, and they did key in on it. They did make fun of it because it's like, oh, we can't have them seeing correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many gross ones.
Trying to get a plant relationship.
Yeah, they want the plant relationship. There's so many gross ones. I used to think like Sofia Vergara was hot, but she just looks disgusting to me now. Like when I was younger. Just another like strat, just in your face, like fake titties.
I don't. Thankfully, I don't know that many celebrity names. Yeah, I don't know. It's I've been disconnected from Hollywood. I only watch anime because I just would pull out my barf bag too often for any of the other shows.
Yeah, I gotta say, like the animated stuff is all we really watch too. It's just and again, like analyzing these movies, I'm sure there's a lot of, so there's some stuff into them you can get into like proportions, but like a lot of the Miyazaki films, they don't seem that like evil or like maybe there is some weird spiritual thing going on when you're watching that's like that's despicable, but I can't find it. I have trouble finding it outside of maybe the proportions of the characters. It's like they are genuine, wholesome movies. You watch The Neighbor Totoro; it's a fantastic movie. I can't say it enough. Just a great like instills a love for nature, and it's a very innocent tale. Um, but yeah, then there's other stuff that's just really gross, and it does seem like I don't know. Maybe it's just me. The live action stuff seems maybe a little bit more sinister. If it's gonna be sinister and animated, it's gonna be like them like fitting in like a poking a butt reference or some like weird like Mickey Mouse holding like a turnip that looks like a penis. Like it's just it's like a little it's still bad. Don't get me wrong, but like the message of the movie isn't as I don't know isn't as dark. But it's hard to say.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. Certain animated stuff is really bad that I've seen that I don't recommend. It's just like I guess high violence anime. Like Dragon Ball Z has always stood out. It's just like ridiculous violence. Like I don't think anybody should be taking in that much. But then there's other stuff that like that Neon Genesis Evangelion has like a lot of like has a lot of like Christian values in it, and it's beautiful, but it's also like really scary too. It's just it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think with children, it's like that really scary shit. Like they should stay away from that.
Yeah,
like it's the MK Ultra kind of films where it's like it's the villain wins in the end, kind of shit. Like that's terrifying for kids. Like give them the escape of reality for a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. When you see the little villain looking at the end and like actually they won, like that is so messed up to a child. It's like, oh, it's still lurking out there, and now I gotta go to sleep. Um, and I thought like when I was young, rated R movies were shown to like 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds. It wasn't a big deal. Like they didn't. I don't know. Like I guess it depends on the family, but I felt like the families that I was around, you got to see a lot of stuff at a young age, like boobs and. I mean, I don't know. That shouldn't be a big deal, but I guess like more like swire boobs in sexual ways, and
yeah,
you're just exposed to a lot of gross, heavily violent stuff because everybody's doing it, so I'm gonna be in the background and watch it too. Um, yeah, and then it is interesting where like I've really like I've gone down on what I take in now. Like I really play video games rarely. It just and then in terms of it's more movies. I can't really watch shows. I can't get hooked into shows.
Yeah, it gets more boring the more you grow up.
Yeah, it does. And yeah, I think there's like so much of it where it's like, if I have my childlike lens on, I could view like, oh, this character has this job that's so legitimate. Now I look at it and I'm like, this person's pitiful. Like I don't want to watch this. Like this is just disgusting. Because you realize like Friends, for instance. Friends is such a good example. It's kind of before your time a little bit, but that show like it is such a good example of like what the tranny life is like. Like they have all these friends and they're all like in each other's business. There's all this drama. I think that's genuine. But for if you're not in that, like Friends has always felt so alien to me. It just feels so far-fetched and corny because I've never had the friend group that you're all, finishing each other's sentences, and they always kept us, I mean the regular people, at arm's length. So these shows are just they're so confusing because they're so antithetical to what we experience. And
yeah, my experience with my friends group is exactly what you were saying earlier about trying to be the fucking clown. And if I'm funny enough, maybe I'm worth staying around. Maybe they're not hating being around me if they're laughing.
Yeah, that's it. You had to really fight to stay in that group, and even then, like, don't go. You really can't make a good point. They're gonna have to like cut you off or one up you. And the one upping, it's such a good aspect of waking up too. Where like before, you probably were like, oh, I'm gonna vie for a better comment or just think of something more clever. It's like now you just give up right away. It's like you're just like, all right, you can sit in that and you can like one up. Like one of the people I work with, I'm not going to get into specifics, but like literally every time like this person has to one up whoever. It doesn't even matter who it is. It's just like, well, I did this. Well, my family did this, and I'm like, it just I don't get it. It's like she literally is just socially lost. Where like sociability to her so often is just I did what you did, and that's all. I don't have to comment on what you did, or what you did wasn't even that special because I did.
What do we think their age is, like that they're stuck at? Like, is it variable?
It's got to be somewhat variable because there's
like,
those families that start juicing up their Martins on testosterone at like 12. But yeah, I would say like on average it's got to be like 16, 17. Like I don't even know if they're seniors yet. They're ready for college. They just
dude, I was guessing earlier.
Like 15 maybe. Oh my god, I've seen some weird people.
I was guessing 13, 14, but you're probably right. Like it's the same time you first hit puberty, so it's when they would stop. I mean,
yeah,
that's probably a medical. We could look up medically when it probably is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe it is 13 because 13, 12, somewhere in there where that's the average puberty age, and they really don't do much after that. That isn't chemically induced.
But still at the same time, if you're a 100-year-old, 13-year-old, you still know some stuff.
Yeah,
it's just you're stuck there.
You're stuck there. Your not your moral compass. Your idea of, I guess, like abstract ideas or even like spatial orientation and like how things look is so vastly different. You have these like 50, 60, 70-year-olds drawing like comic books of like ridiculous proportions, like over musculature, like huge fake tits. They can't get out of that like ridiculous cartoony, like they talked about it before, the white sclera of your eyes, like googly eye mind mentality. There's so much media that is just like, the person that came up with this must have been the most like bizarro crazy person. Their whole world is like these like giant googly eye characters, and yeah, it is like they're stuck at 13. Like it's too, life is too hard for them, so they can't, they have to like cushify death and make it seem like it's something to be fearful of so often when it's not. Because
okay, what was sorry, finish your point, but I have a question.
What's your question?
Okay, what was the point when it was like kind of when life flipped upside down for you, like in terms of like friend groups and stuff? Mine was 10th grade. Like 9th grade was kind of making sense. The wheels were kind of falling off then. I don't know how old 9th and 10th. That must be like, that's got to be like 15, 16?
Yeah,
14?
14 through 16, somewhere in there.
15? Like, when did the wheels fall off for you? Or did it even?
So like, yeah, in making the testimony video, I definitely want to reference this. But when I was young, I grew up on this street where so many people in my neighborhood were my age, and we were all playing games together, whether it was like Pokemon, video games, sports, all this stuff. We were all like heavily in each other's lives, biking around, all this stuff. And I was often the one who was like knocking on doors, ringing doorbells, like the initiator. I mean, it makes sense. I was the real man. Also, when I forgot to mention this, but when we first moved to our neighborhood, every boy in the neighborhood, Martin, now that I know, went into my basement and everybody had to look at each other's penises. A weird sidebar there, but just very interesting experience. And then, like very bizarre. And then growing up, what I noticed was the big turnoff is what Hans talks about. It's middle school, man, where I had this really close friend. Like he lived down the street from me. We got along so well. And then it was like the first few days of school, I would like see him, and then it just got to be where it was like, oh, we're just going through a phase, and he's gonna go hang out with other people, and we don't even see each other anymore. And it felt like we had no classes together on purpose. It felt like it was almost like, hey, you gotta cut ties with him. We're gonna give you like the solid and not have you be in any classes with him, so it's easier for you. Because we were in classes together, we got along so well.
you're dealing with knowing all. You're getting all your tranny surgeries at the same time too. So
Yeah,
he's dealing with that himself.
I felt like he had the dimples one that German videos references with what's the guy's name? The Mexican, what's his name? Saved by the Bell. Oh,
Mario Lopez.
Mario Lopez. Yes, like I felt the guy that I was friends with had one of those surgeries, and it looked a little bit weird, and started doing like Dougie and twerking and all these weird popular dances, and I'm like, you became a caricature. Why are you trying to like entertain everybody? Where before you were this cool person who had all this like unique takes on everything.
Yeah, it's like the mental development. Like women have to be so disgusted with like what men are. Like they can kind of find a couple of men like each other, but it's like I think people are stuck at like maybe even 13 even. It's like finding fart jokes funny. Like I found that funny like fourth grade,
Yeah.
like fifth grade maybe.
Yeah,
Like fart jokes are like maybe it's because of all of the sodomy they do. They find more humor in it. I don't know.
they might. It might be kind of like a truth in plain sight where they are releasing them more often. They have a greater understanding of the different accents of farts and stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, hearing like a dog fart or just like a random one out of nowhere can sometimes like ease the air or like make it funny or like it can definitely be an icebreaker. But yeah, the emphasis on that or like that's what she said kind of humor, it just doesn't seem to end. Like they just love it and you're like,
Yeah,
this is like
I
some
think
50-year-old
I
guy
think
doing this.
that was the best time in my life. Was being at the same mental age development as them, which was probably like fucking. I just found a weird hole. I'm hoping it's not a snake. Hold on. I think it was probably like fourth grade. I think that was the best time, and they kept getting more weirded out by us because we were developing mentally while they weren't.
Yeah, and it was so blatant too. You talk about the friend group aspect where this same friend I'm talking about, I stayed friends with him. Like I was around him a lot through high school because we were part of the same friend group. But like our personal one-on-one time had completely gone down. But in this friend group, they would so often have these like get-togethers and just not even tell me. And then like someone would like bring it up, and then I'd be like, "Oh, what was that?" Oh, it's like, "Oh, we all went to this." And then I'd be like, "Oh,"
Yeah,
and I would like, "Oh, this person went," and oh, every single one of you went except for me, and I didn't even know about it. And then they would just kind of brush it off, and it was maybe just like scared or just feeling like awkward. I would just still be like, okay, it's fine. I'm gonna still hang out with these people, but I moved around. I couldn't stay with them because they weren't reliable.
I'm getting a call.
Oh, okay,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Maybe you can continue going with them while I'm gone.
Okay, yeah. So just to finish that point, on the friend group. So we we would get together pretty often, but there would almost weekly be an event that I had no recollection of, no idea that was even occurring, and they would all go except for me, and it just became clear as day that I wasn't in the in crowd, part of the true friendship group.
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, and I'm just going on that same point that you have a quote unquote friend group, but they routinely leave you out of things, or a lot of members within the friend group are hanging out together and not inviting you, and it just becomes obvious that you're like left out. So we had this other friend who was a Martin who was also ostracized from the friend group, but it was more so because he was like a computer geek type, and I always loved him. I loved hanging out with him. Thought he was one of the funniest, more honest members of the group, one of the more funny members of the group, and he was also the one that was ostracized. Where it gives me hope now because I could see in him more like a willingness to be friends with a wider variety of people and not be so cliquey and like Baphomet behavior exclusive.
Well, at the same time, it's like if they were in a situation where they had a lot of friends, they probably wouldn't pick to hang out with you. It's like it
Yeah,
takes only one person to not want to hang out with you, and the other friends are like, "Well, that's okay. We like hanging out with you, so we won't hang out with them." It's I feel that same thing where it's like I'm friends with the people that don't have any friends.
yeah, because because you understand it and it's intentional and it's just like Yeah, it was such bullshit, and I think for them it doesn't really end, but for us we can kind of see past it and like forgive them, and then hey, it's a new day. If you're that person who gave me all that trouble in high school, I'm gonna go to you and I'm gonna believe that you've made all these changes, and if you haven't, that's fine. I'm not gonna dwell on it, but I want to always hold that hand out. I don't want to, you know, completely close out friendships
Yeah.
or potential ones. And I loved seeing life in that way, like going through those initial, maybe even a year or two, where I was just like like learning about all this stuff through Hans and feeling like I needed to just be in my own little hovel and just like live, like be very quiet and just kind of
Mm.
observe, and not coming out of it and realizing that you can go out there and be bold and change lives and say what you feel, and if people put you down, then like let them do that. That's fine. It's and if they ignore you, and or if they walk away, or like don't let you finish your sentences, then they're not worth it. Like that's okay. I've had those. I have that. Some of the most common ones is it's like a really nice person nowadays. They may or may not be inverted, but they'll just kind of like trail off and walk away. And and what I do with that now, where I used to be like, oh, I'm making mistakes and I'm not listening well, or something's off. I'll be like, no, I genuinely am present in there, and that person's just not willing to have a full conversation. They only want to talk and then leave. Like I just you've got to accept that there's people. My mom is like this. Like
Yeah.
we'll just kind of like trail off. Doesn't really want to hear what I have to say. Will like cut me off, and I just got to be like, okay, this is how they want to live their life. They don't want to have this good reciprocal conversation. I'm gonna leave it. There's no reason to prolong it if it has such an obvious character to it.
Yeah, dude, I have so much PTSD of people being dicks in conversations. I thought last episode that you said an enemy multiplied kisses, and but a friend shows like something, right? Whatever the verse is, and then you said right after, I thought it was like, Zach, you interrupt too much. I was like, fuck, dude. I was like, damn, that hit me hard. Did you? You didn't actually say that, did you? I think I was getting PTSD.
No, no. I think maybe you misheard me. I thought I said that I interrupt too much. Like Danny told me that I have to let you talk more because I talk too much.
Yeah, I misheard what you said. I totally like shut down. I was like thinking back about that. I was like, dude, I do interrupt too much. I was listening to the last episode. I was like, fuck, dude, really getting down on myself.
No, no, not at all. I think you had a lot of good points and you carried it when it got into lulls, and you came with more reading than I did that time. Um, so I think that you're very reciprocal and you take everything I say to heart and vice versa. I think that's what's so exciting about it is when you do find, like I think I found with my partner, just this reciprocity, and whenever either of us even begins to err on that, it's so obvious, and then we catch each other and we call each other
Yeah,
out, and it's cool. It's like the Jesus calling Peter Satan thing. It's like when your people are like really close and you love them, you can call them
yeah,
out. You can call them out, and you know that they're going to be able to handle it.
absolutely. That's as someone who's tried to function like a Overwatch team, which that's its own unit, is each different personality on 6 people in total. It's like you have to be able to call each other out, and that was the worst thing when the team wasn't able to take my criticism, where I wasn't able to take theirs, and it turned up. Eventually, they figured I was a natural, and it turned into them gaining on me. But I knew I was right about certain things, so I was just okay with that. But it's so true when you're able to call each other out and like do stuff like that. Like that's great. I think this podcast is amazing. Like each we get 2 weeks to kind of prepare what to say. Like, is there anything that you've prepared that you've wanted to say for this episode? I've kind of went through all mine already.
Yeah. I mean, I have been reading through Isaiah and found a lot of great stuff in that in this book.
Great.
We went through a lot of Proverbs the last couple times. That's been fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, I like the Proverbs. That's why I got PTSD though. Was the guy that was a dick to me in his rehab? He'd always go through Proverbs and talk about how I was always fucking up, and I kind of misheard that.
Yeah. There is an amazing verse that I pulled up at the beginning. that I love in Isaiah 50. It's the verse 4. The Lord God hath given me the tongue of the learned, that I should know how to speak. A word in season to him that is weary. He awakeneth morning by morning. He wakeneth mine ear to hear as the learned. The Lord God hath opened mine ear, and I was not rebellious, neither turned away back. I gave my back to the smiters, and my cheeks to them that plucked off the hair. I hid not my face from shame and spitting. This is what we've gone through. This is such a good just verse to describe
Yeah.
the experience. For the Lord
Didn't
God will
didn't turn his head away from spitting. Is that what they said?
yeah. I hid not my face from shame and spitting. For the Lord God
Yeah.
will help me.
True.
Therefore shall I not be confounded. Therefore have I set my face like a flint, and I know that I shall not be ashamed. Like just telling you to feel strong and have that foundation of truth. Setting your face like a flint is such a good imagery of that. He is near that justifieth me. Who will contend with me? Let us stand together. Who is mine adversary? Let him come near me. Behold, the Lord God will help me. Who is he that shall condemn me? Lo, they all shall wax old as a garment. The moth shall eat them up. All those frowns, those hard faces that you see, you can just kind of shrug your shoulders at them because they're not founded in anything. And yeah, like time will eat those faces up. Like
Right.
you can constantly look towards God, and then you see God in everything. Um, who is among you that feareth the Lord, that obeyeth the voice of his servant, that walketh in darkness and hath no light? Let him trust in the name of the Lord and stay upon his God. Behold, all ye that kindle a fire, encompass yourself about with sparks. Walk in the light of your fire, in the sparks that ye have kindled. This shall ye have mind in hand. Ye shall lie down in sorrow. So
Beautiful.
yeah, so there is this sadness that comes of it, but it's this strength in adversity and knowing that you are compassed by a world of lying and deceit and calling it out instead of just going along with it. It takes strength to do that, but that's the ultimate reward is you get to see truth, you sleep better, and you find these good people out there that are going to inevitably bring you up and you're going to bring them up. And you're going to do it with in a way that's more like Jesus, where you don't have to be out in the public, going crazy, yelling at trannies. You can do so quietly and call out the obvious, strange, awkward behavior of people that are plastered all over the place, and you can feel a greater strength in knowing the way this place really works and how this place really uh, has a lot of mystical aspects to it that aren't related to aliens. It's more so related to how the firmament actually works and how Revelation is actually going to show up and how we are going to have different words for it than are in the Bible and how that's all going to be and how we live in such an interesting time. There's so much to look into and study, and we do have a lot of time.
Right.
And we do have a lot of time to study it. And I think without these distractions of trying to worship false idols or look good in the eyes of the crowd, it makes it easier for us to focus on our own shortcomings and then go into these conversations with greater clarity and not feeling like we need to build ourselves up. We go to these places with great excitement and potential for change. Hans makes such a great point about the yearbooks and how the people that are we think we call terrors are like never change. How we are always changing and developing, and there's so many different things we can pull from, and we're not hampered by oh, this is our job, therefore that's all we do. No, like we are very complex beings realizing these hidden superpowers, these dormant strengths, because we can see clearly now. It's so interesting when you don't care about keeping up with the Joneses or who's celebrity or what. It just doesn't matter, and you can see.
Yeah, who the fuck cares?
Who the fuck cares? When you can see there's good people that are realizing the power of the moonlight and the power of true camaraderie and being able to sift through poor relationships. We just figured out that one of my partner's relationships with her friend that I've referenced before, she actually is a strat and was just disgusting. Like We watched that video that you posted together of Dog the Bounty Hunter, Dog the Brownie Hunter, and we're looking at the Anna Nicole Smith Beth like person that's like all made up, put on fake weight, may have even had fat deposits, and we're looking at this friend, and this friend has no cupid's bow, has a long neck, and we just were confused by her weight. And like
same way, same dude. I did that before too, and it was the hips that gave it away for me. Thinking back,
they're so telling. The hips don't lie.
Yeah.
And yeah, now it's just clear her behavior was like, it was so it was so self-absorbed and degrading to be around, and she wasn't taking any care of her children because she didn't have that maternal instinct because she's a strat. And it's like it helps to see through. It helps to see through all these things when you're willing to like put yourself out there and say silly things once in a while, because people are going to scorn you for them, and then you're going to show humility by owning up to it, and then you can see more clearly the people around you and what their intentions are, because you're so willing to, hey, be corrected, be made an example of. It's not a big deal. It's okay to be examined more deeply. What's the worst that can happen? Like, they already, in so many cases, they already treat you poorly. So if they're examining you deeply, you have nothing to hide. You have nothing to. If you're gonna make a mistake, that's natural. Everybody makes mistakes, and naturally, as you get wiser and older, you're gonna make fewer mistakes, and they're gonna be grasping for straws. That's the coolest thing about getting older, is they really grasp for straws at how to insult you. Oh, you're so thin. Oh, you're so thin. Or, oh, I don't even get that anymore, really. They'll call me like thin guy or something, but string bean and stuff like that. Yeah, it just doesn't register as much. And then if you don't care about the popular media, it just kind of like you shrug your shoulders. Oh, I'm just interested in other things. I haven't paid attention. It's not like, I don't know. I felt like there was like in high school, it was like a smaller echo chamber, or even college, where if I wasn't watching the biggest movies or looking at the biggest artists on musically or whatever, I felt like I was left out playing these big games. It's like now, further removed from all that, it's like, who cares? It's I don't know. It can be like a distraction, but it's not this. I've gotta take part in this zeitgeist, otherwise I'm not getting the full the full human experience. The whole fear of missing out thing really, in my opinion, exits completely once you know this truth stuff. You're not missing out on anything. You're missing out on fake news. You're missing out on, tranny parties. People wearing masks. You're not missing out on your family and the people that you can talk to. That's what's the real essence and the source and things to look forward to. This good word you can read every night, and read without the blinders of the fake church, or the blinders of family that was like, oh, all this stuff is antiquated and stupid, but never give you any depth of why. I always get such vague answers growing up about why the Bible was bad, or why it was antiquated, or that we don't talk like that anymore. And it's got all these amazing lessons and relatable, just wonderful passages that do amazing, life changing passages. That
one thing that came up recently with Hans was that people used to be more genetically complex, and that they were able to talk in like poetic ways all the time. Like that seems pretty reasonable to me, that people used to talk way more poetically than we do now.
It may be, genetic complexity is an interesting aspect of it. I think that's definitely true. But then also I think things like cursive were more valued, and writing letters, and the discourse was not so much about having like the newest slang, or having something that's simple to say. It was more so, how can you convey an image that somebody can really take and be able to understand in greater depth than, here's the instruction booklet, here's how to do it in like very black and white version, quick and simple. And like you expand that idea and look at all the structures from back then. That's because people could explain themselves way more vividly. I think we have that capacity if we continue reading the Bible and other works like this, digging into the Apocrypha and some of the more lesser known texts. Inevitably, we're going to have better vocabulary and better understanding and better conversation and better ways at conveying imagery. Um, but even with
Yeah.
this, even listening to Hans, someone as intelligent and well worded as he is, talk at length about kings, and just seeing him time and again. I need to go back to this. I need to go back to this because I'm not understanding the depth of what's going on. Like so much of the machinery and how these buildings were implemented it's almost foreign to what we've been taught, or the lack of what we've been taught on how these things operate. It's amazing how much we have to learn.
Yeah. Well, I can't talk too much in a little bit. I'm walking back to the house. It's getting dark.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe we can close it out here.
Yeah, I think so. I think we got a lot of good stuff, and I think 2-3 hours. I think that's when we get the best of our stuff, and I think after a while it does, just naturally. I think with anything, you're gonna wane a little bit and start repeating yourself.
Yeah.
So I think we got a lot of great stuff here, and I think
I really like this episode.
I do too, and I think it's good that we're bringing in this new person, this strange realm, and we'd love to bring in Hans too, and I just think it's exciting to see some really positive shifts in this community, that people are seeing what we're seeing and speaking out and not being cowardly like we used to. I mean, you and him are about the same age, and you guys have such great vocabulary, such great points that you're making, and relatable testimonies. Yeah,
that's great.
It's wonderful.
All right. Maybe, yeah, I don't feel safe sharing too much more at this current point in time.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, everyone, this has been episode. Shoot. Well, most people are going to watch this after it's gone famous. Like you spend a year on a project, like guest speaker said, and then people kind of come around to seeing it then.
Yeah.
Which, of course, we'll get there. There's no point of us stopping now unless Jesus comes back or something like that. You're gonna keep seeing this going. We're committed to it for sure. We've been doing this on a pretty regular basis, despite not that many episodes being out. A lot of them have succumbed to technical difficulties.
Yeah.
And it's been a ride. It's been good figuring stuff out. I'm glad we contributed some stuff to the zeitgeist. I hope, eventually people will figure out about this stuff, but maybe not for now. We're talking to mostly people in the future. Hopefully, there's not been another COVID lockdown. All right. God bless y'all.
Yeah, God bless everybody. That was amazing.
All right. Is it